Every year, baseball fans are reminded that spring training records do not count. Good thing, because the Astros' 1-6 Grapefruit League start doesn't exactly inspire confidence. The club will also be without 3 players for the next few weeks, not due to injury, but because Jeremy Pena, Zach DeZenzo, and Shea Whitcomb are playing for the Dominican Republic, Italy, and Korea, respectively, in this year's World Baseball Classic, which is taking place in 4 cities, Houston included, but will feature far fewer major leaguers than in years past, and one Astros star's experience last time may help explain why. Jeff Balke co-hosts the Bleav in Astros podcast and joins us now. Hi, Jeff.
Good morning, Craig.
Why are far fewer Major League ball players taking part in this year's World Baseball Classic?
Well, the biggest problem is because there is a concern of injury. We know how Jose Altuve missed some time after the last World Baseball Classic due to an injury, and players recognize that. So a lot of them, what they've tried to do is they've tried to get insurance for themselves, which is a kind of a common practice, I think, among these things. But the insurance is so expensive that they don't want to pay it. And Carlos Correa, for example, wanted to play for Team Puerto Rico, but the insurance was too expensive. And then Bad Bunny stepped up and said, "Hey, I'll pay for it for you." And Carlos was like, "I think I'm good." And and so you see that concern. And the truth of the matter is that I think position players are less at risk than pitchers. But they're still trying to protect themselves. Pitchers, it's a bigger concern because they're forced to be ramped up to a starting caliber pitcher much earlier than they would if this were just spring training. And so there have been some, if you look back over the years, there have been some times where pitchers tired out or they had injuries after the WBC. So it's why I think Tarek Skubal is only pitching, and he said he will pitch 1 game for Team USA. So there's been a lot of limitations and things like that. I think the timing of the World Baseball Classic just makes it awkward.
Are you hoping, despite all that, to take in one or more of the WBC games that will be at Dyken Park starting later this week?
I'm not going to be able to be there personally because I will not be in town, but I am fascinated by these tournaments. They always produce really interesting quality baseball. These are a lot of times these are players from other countries who don't really get a world stage and get to play in, major league ballparks. And they're playing with pride on the line. It's similar to the Olympics for them or the World Cup. So for a lot of these teams, it's really interesting. And of course, Japan is really, really good. And so the Japan-U.S. matchups along with the Dominican Republic, there's going to be some pretty good, compelling baseball matchups. And, Dyken Park has the up to the quarterfinals, and then they have one of the quarterfinal matches as well. The finals are in Miami. But really, I think some really good baseball. WBC always produces some really compelling baseball.
There's also an exhibition match scheduled between Team Venezuela and the Astros tomorrow in Florida. What intrigues you about that?
It's just, to be honest, with the spring training games are always great to me. I mean, there's nothing to me that is more relaxing than spring training baseball on the radio. It's one of my favorite things of all time. And whenever you can put any kind of competitive balance into that, right? Because spring training is meant guys are working on stuff. They're not really worried about wins and losses, as you mentioned. And so when you put a team like Team Venezuela who's going to want to try and win, it's a good opportunity for the Astros to say, okay, maybe we want to try and win this one too. And you can put a little more competitive nature into that game. And it's just anything you can do in spring training to kind of get these guys the feel for the game, especially as it's about to come up here in a month or so. The more of that you can do, I think just the better for competitiveness.
Have you learned anything so far about this year's Astros after their first week of Grapefruit League games?
It's a good question. Right now there's a couple of interesting developments. Walker Yannick, who's a catcher, has been just hitting the cover off the ball. He's one of their better prospects. So he's going to be one to watch, especially given the fact that right now our catching position is, basically they have Cesar Salazar as the backup. And I'm not sure that's going to be something the Astros will want to keep in that way. The other really interesting thing for me is watching the battle between a lot of young players who are battling for position on the 26-man roster, particularly in the outfield. You got Joey Loperfido, Zach DeZenzo, you've got Cam Smith, Zach Cole, even Bryce Matthews, who's taken a few fly balls out in the outfield. It's a really competitive group out there. Given the fact that they're probably going to have to fill 2 of those positions in the outfield, the right field and left field. it's going to be interesting to see how those competitions play out. The Astros want to have some young players up on the 26-man roster because it gives them the opportunity to send guys back and forth to the minor leagues as they need to. And so I think that's an interesting battle for sure.
This is the first season Major League Baseball will employ the automated ball strike challenge system during the regular season, and we have already seen it used a lot in some spring training games. What are your observations about it so far?
It's been really good. I think for the most part, it's very fast. I've watched a couple of the games and been impressed by how quickly and how often, frankly, calls are overturned. I think that the thing that's going to come down to is who's going to get to make those decisions. And ball clubs, because they only get 2 of them, they're going to be pretty tight reins on who is allowed to make those calls. Most of the time, it's going to be the catcher, right? Because he has the best vantage point to make that decision. But we all know there are a lot of pitchers out there who think they know every ball and strike that it should be called. And it's going to be hard for some of them not to want to be like, hey, call that back. That definitely was a strike. So it'll be very interesting to see how those items play out. But frankly, I think it's been a really positive addition. And I think there are going to be times when it's going to help baseball this season.
Has Major League Baseball worked out what will happen on pitches, say, challenged by pitchers or batters where a base runner is attempting to steal or score?
I haven't heard a whole lot about that. There's going to have to be some clarification. I know they've dealt with that in the minors. I'm going to be the thing for me that's going to be really interesting is, will there be any misunderstandings? Will somebody say, I called for that, but then the umpire doesn't see it, or and I don't know the answer to all those things, to be honest with you. I think some of this is going to have to be fleshed out. Now, it's good that this has been going on in the minors for a few seasons now, but first at the lower levels and then at AAA. So they've had some time to really test it. But humans are humans, and there's going to be errors that are made, and there's going to be mistakes that are made. Frankly, I think they'll probably be minor. But I am glad the ABS system is here because, listen, when you look back at some of the reports from what pitchers and catchers have had to deal with from certain officials, I think it's just necessary.
Jeff Balke co-hosts the Bleav in Astros podcast. Jeff, thank you very much.
Thank you, Craig.